What makes up a professional job search strategy for 2020? That's what we're going to cover in today's video. We're going to start from the beginning, from all the things you need to start doing before you even go on your job search, to what it takes to get a job in 2020 and what to expect for the future as well. That way you're prepared fully. This can be applied to whoever you are in any country, in any position. I promise you that, because we'll be covering principles as opposed to specific tactics. So if that's something you are interested in, then keep on watching. Hey, this is Michael with Michael's Business English. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Vrincon. I am a former six-figure data analyst or an ESL instructor and career coach, and I support English language learners improve their career development through communication and language training. On this channel, we talk about business English, communications, and career development. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure you like and subscribe to receive notifications when we release new videos. And all the links that we mention in this video will be in the description box below. So this is all about how do you build a professional job search strategy for 2020, because things have changed depending on when you started job searching. So for example, a lot of my students are in their 40s and 50s, and they're not used to using things like the internet. They don't know how to deal with the ATS. And now we're starting to have new technologies such as AI robots that actually do interviews for you. So things have probably changed depending on when you started interviewing, when you first had your last interview, depending on who you are. Now, for some of you, that's not going to be a big deal. Some of you are a little bit younger, or maybe you've been actively job searching like I have. So with me in my career, I have been looking for work every year since college, because every year I've always gotten a new job. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to break this down as high level as I can, but make sure I hit the key points here. So the first thing I want to talk about is, before you even think about your job search, you need to worry about your end goal. I can't stress this enough. Like, some people just say, I just want a job and that's it, and just give me a job. And no, that's if there's one thing you take away from this video, it's that you understand that you do not want to be in a position where you are just kind of going with the flow and hoping jobs land, because that is how you end up in a job where you're unhappy, you're not being paid what you want to be paid, you're being mistreated by your coworkers, and life just passes you by, and you're not making the income you want, you're not doing the work you want to do. And I've seen this time and time again. I've been a victim of this, my friends have been a victim of this, my dad's been a victim of this, where you just take a job just because it has to happen. In fact, one of my very first students was a vice president of information technology in Moscow, but then he came to the US and he didn't follow the advice that I'm going to give you here. And so what happened to him was that 3 months into our English language training, when I was teaching English for him, he had to get a job installing radio dishes, because he chose not to do the job search strategy. Instead, he just got a job through a friend, and his only friend was someone who knew how to install radio dishes. That's the only job he could get. So it's really important when I say, like, if there's one thing you take away from this video, is you make sure you have a clear idea of your end goal. Meaning, it doesn't have to have an exact title, it doesn't have an exact position in a specific company or anything like that, but you should have an idea of what you're looking for in terms of compensation, how realistic is that, and you should also be aware of the fact of what kind of skills you're trying to do. So for example, if you know, you don't want to be doing radio dish installation, you should be aware of that. It's just as important to know what you want as much as you don't want, because for example, what I've learned is that I prefer not to work in group settings. Right? I am an individual contributor. I found that's my asset. And so when I have to work on teams, it's kind of a challenge for me. So the first thing I want you to do is write down as much as you can. If you don't know, that's okay, but make sure you have a very clear goal of what you're looking for at the end. Maybe it's a job, maybe it's a salary, it's the benefits. Is it a part-time job? Is it a full-time job? Do you need a visa so you can get to live in the country permanently? What do you need? What are the things that you need from this job that are going to be satisfied through this job search? Because if you don't know that, again, you're going to end up in a job that's probably not going to serve you. Now, the second thing to be aware of in your job search is that you need to have a process, a plan, right? When people struggle with their job searches, because it's not because one thing is wrong. It's usually a bunch of different pieces. So they may have a decent CV or resume. They may have a network that can help them get jobs. They may actually get job offers. But all that stuff is kind of based on little bits and pieces breaking here and there. So going back to my colleague, my student who installs radio dishes, despite being a vice president of information technology, is because he had some items okay in his process, but not all of them were clear, right? So remember that when you're thinking about your job search, you want to make sure that you have a very clear roadmap. You don't want to just like go through and just like go randomly apply for jobs or anything like that. You want to make sure that one, the first thing is that you have your idea, you have your goal, and two, you have a plan for how you're going to actually achieve that goal. So for example, if your goal was to get a job as an analyst, what would be the ideal steps for you to take, right? So you want to make sure that you have an idea, you have to research the analyst type roles, who's hiring, what kind of companies, what are the best companies to work for, what makes sense for you and your interest, right? After that, you want to find out what kind of work can you do, what kind of work is required to be an analyst. So that second part of this is actually researching for the roles that you're interested in and seeing what you need to do in order to qualify those. And the reason we start with the idea first, then we research, is because there's no point in researching for a job you're not interested in. So first, you want to find out the jobs you are interested in, the goals that you want, and then research to see how viable is it, or do you have to take steps to get there. So for example, for me, when I graduated college, I ended up getting a job for $15 an hour, which is very low in the US. It's an entry-level job. You know, it's not like something you should be getting paid if you went to college, because it's only $30,000 a year. And so the first couple of years after college, I struggled with my income. I barely made ends meet. And then I found, like, for me to get to my end goal, I figured out, like, this is what I want. I want to be making more money. I want to be working with higher end clients, meaning not just working with like any manager, working with managers who are clearly professional, like executives level roles, for example. And what I found was that certain titles have access to C-level executives, like analyst positions. And that's how I figured out, well, I want to be an analyst. That was how I got my end goal of being an analyst. And so the next step was for me to research, what does it take to be an analyst? And so there are certain skills you need, like you need to learn Excel, Access, SQL, Tableau, presenting, reporting. Those are the skills I cultivated. And it took me a few years to go from being like an entry-level person to becoming an analytic consultant making $50 an hour, which is six figures. So after you've gotten the process down, you've done the research, the next step is to create the plan and to figure out what do I need to do to actually get there. So one thing I did along the way after doing the research was I started doing something called informational interviews. If you've never heard of that before, make sure you comment below. Tell me like what you think it means. Like if you have done it, then let me know what kind of informational interviews you've done. And this is an important thing to understand, because informational interviews are what I think are the key elements, the difference that makes the difference. It's the reason that some people are able to get jobs so quickly and other people are not. It's this ability to do informational interviews. Because I see a lot of students who are struggling. I don't want to network. I don't know how to build a network. I don't have friends. Well, you don't actually need a network, right? Like that's something people misunderstand. If they think I need to have a big network, well, I hit six figures without using my network, without using a big network anyway. Like I had less than 200 connections on LinkedIn when I first started looking for work. All you need to do is find the right people who can help you, people who have the title that you have, people who live the life that you want to live, right? So my very first informational interview was with a coworker in my company who was a manager of financial planning analysis. And I reached out to her specifically because she was reporting directly to the CFO and she was younger than me. So I was like, interesting. I wonder why she's able to make more money than I am, why she's reporting to the C-level executive despite being younger than me, despite having similar credentials. You see what I'm getting at? Information interviews, this is a non-negotiable in my opinion. Like if you skip these, you're going to be in a world of hurt, because there's certain information that you're not going to get from Googling, from going online. It's just really hard to find it. It's just not on the internet. That's why you need to do the informational interviews. Now, information interviews have a second kind of effect, which is that a decent information interview done right can actually lead to getting real interviews and job offers from companies, because most of the time companies don't list the position, which maybe you're aware of that, maybe you're not. But what happens is if you call someone, you connect with the right person, they'll be like, oh, just in time, we need someone like you. Especially if you do really decent in the information, you just show a good persona, you're professional, you're clean, you have the skills. I have tried to get people in. Some places I've gotten people in job offers through information interviews when I was working full time. So highly recommend you use the informational interviews. After that, it's all about the tactical stuff, right? This is about like making sure your resume, CV is up to date. Make sure you have a good cover letter. Make sure you have a good practice for interview. You have a good attire. You have the right fashion. It's just tactic level stuff. So it's just all the little things that need to be taken care of. That's stuff that you expect in a normal job search. Being prepared to answer interview questions, especially now as we're dealing with more variety of interviews. So I had to interview last year for a job, and I do something called a case study, which is I had to deliver a presentation over 45 minutes, take a report and build a report out of the spreadsheet and then present it to executives as part of my interview. I've also had to do other things like group panel interviews where I'm part of a group. We're all getting interviewed at the same time, and I've also had some where I'm interviewing with multiple managers at the same time. And now we have the introduction and inclusion of AI robotics in the interview process. And so they're like now checking you out, seeing how you are feeling, checking your emotions, checking your facial expressions. So now more than ever, getting your mindset is taken care of is really important so you don't show up as nervous or awkward. Okay? The final thing as far as the job search process is to make sure you have your end goal in mind, again, because once you get the job offer, you need to be able to negotiate if necessary. Like I say if necessary because I actually don't negotiate, because I just, I'm not really interested in things like cash, and I don't really care about that. I just, the other thing is that if you look at my history, you'll notice that every time I've gone from one job to another has been that I've made a 20% increase. So I went from $15 to 17, 17 to 19, 19 to 23, and then 23 to 47. Then 47 to 50, then 50 to 52, and you see I'm going like, so I don't really feel the need to negotiate. So one last bit of information you might be curious about is like things like gaps in your resume and job hopping. Is that still a problem? Yes. Yes and no, but yes, meaning that more employers are becoming more lenient and open and understanding that the job market's changed and it's becoming normal for people to have gaps in their resume and to leave in less than a year and all sorts of the things that were not that we considered like deal breakers, right? Like if you had a gap in your resume for any reason, like you're not employable. There's actually something called unemployment bias. There was a report done where they found tons of employers who were discriminating. If you're not already employed, they can't consider you. So that's important to know. Be aware of that. That hasn't gone away. It's still a problem. It's still a challenge. Bias still exists. There's nothing we can do about it. But with that being said, it's not the end of the world. It's not like it's impossible for you to go and get a job with gaps in your resume or because you job hop. Like if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you'll see like I have gaps in my CV, my profile. You see I'll have gaps in my job search. You also see that I didn't stay in every job for at least a year. Okay, so to conclude this video, I gave you an outline of the job search strategy for 2020 at a very high level, as quick as I could within a YouTube video. I hope that was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments what questions you have or if there's something you need help implementing. I think the biggest one for most of my students has been informational interviews. It's super challenging. So if you need help, let me know. Let's get in the comments. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active right now. So connect with me on LinkedIn. It's at Michael Rincon. You can find my LinkedIn profile online. You'll see very quickly I have the same profile picture that I have on YouTube. Shoot me a DM. Let me know what questions you have. All right. Thank you so much. Hope you guys have a good day. I'll see you guys in the next video. All right. Thank you.